I would also say what can be rough being in within the queer community, the LGBTQ community, is that if you are partnered to a cis man, then your queer identity is invalidated. And so my partner is a cis man. And I find it to be very interesting that I, when we can't go to queer spaces together, we would not be accepted in queer spaces together. So although I have queer friends, I'm accepted in my friend spaces. But if we were to go to a queer bar or even Pride, couldn't do it, couldn't happen. And my identity as a queer person is erased from both people within my own community and people who are outside of that community. And then I always find it interesting is that the thought is never that my partner is in a queer relationship. Like, one could say that he is queer because he is in a queer relationship. Mm-hmm. But that's not how he sees it. And that is not how the world sees it. Because our relationship is outside of the norms of a typical heterosexual
binary
monogamous relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't mean to be a host real quick, but Cody, do you see yourself as being in a queer relationship, being that your partner is queer, bi, and as well as you all are in a open relationship, although not practicing at this moment?
See, I'm gonna say no because like default, I don't want to do anything with another guy. I might be like open to experimenting with that later on, but that's going to be like more of a trust thing that I'm doing for my partner, not something that I'm doing for my own enjoyment. So I don't necessarily feel like that would be sufficient enough to include me in the community where it's like I'm more of our participant, like just kind of floating through rather than someone actively being involved.
I would push back on that. I would push back on that. But, that's not my place to label your relationship. But I would push back because your relationship is outside of heteronormative and monogamous norms.
Yeah, like the traditional sense.
Yeah, so because it's outside of a traditional sense, it's queer. It's a queer relationship, not simply because of practices, not necessarily because of your sexual preferences and habits, but simply because it's not hetero and it's not monogamous.
And when we start thinking about like the relationship as a pair, that's where it does get harder, like a lot more grayer to identify. Because if you're thinking of like my partner as bi and me as practicing heteronormative, then like if you conceptualize us individually as different circles, then like, yes, the queer's over here, I'm over here. But once it gets into how, we interact together and the relationship is not just an I, her, it's a we. So it's more of a Venn diagram. So I can't necessarily like, if you're conceptualizing it that way, then yeah, there's no way I can really give a pushback to that because I am more accepting of her identities. I am more open to the experience of kind of other people just to understand and see if that's something that, maybe I could get enjoyment from. But the thought of it, like the concept in my mind, does not immediately come forth as one that would bring me joy. It's not a negative thing either, which I also think is important. Because if it is negative, then you got to kind of examine that internal bias. See, like, why am I having this initial negative reaction to this concept when it's not even, I'm not doing anything, it's just all purely intellectual? Then why is that something that I would have a negative response to? So it's more like a neutral thing where for me, it'd be more so about trust with my partner, talking through, if we did have another guy, what would that look like? What are the boundaries? Kind of where is everyone's comfort? And if you talk to anyone about like sexuality stuff, that's essentially what that openness is finding those boundaries, finding those comfort zones, and then experimenting with it. So from like that point of view, of like human sexuality as a whole, in terms of our relationship as a we, yes, queer. Part of the reason I'm wearing like Team Pride, boom.
I'm glad you said it too, because like for the listeners who do only the audio, they're like, what just happened?
Also, pink pants, boom. My pants are as salmon as Sammy Sosa. Call back to the last episode I was on. True fans, you know. Darius, I love you.
Yep. I love you too, bro.
At this point, it feels like a love fest between y'all, and we're just watching and participating.
That has been a trend throughout my life, that there are many guys who I have, to put it in cultural context that will be easily understandable without having to define the term, brosexual. Mickey's initial just...
Bro, this whole roundabout way. Did you say that you have solid relationships and friendships with people?
Exactly.
I know,
just
like
it's
a weird guy thing of saying, I just be like, I love them. That's cool.
Well, so one thing I do like about the terms, because like even that is a way to express like how away from just the traditional terms and verbiage that we've moved away from too. Because like me and Cody, it's like we just have as much fun as like possible. So we just do whatever we want. We don't really care about how things are viewed by like others, Like we would hug, and I would definitely be like, "Oh yeah, Cody, like this is my guy." Like we're just like right here, hugged up and stuff like that. And
we
it's
called
like
each other, he's my black half, I'm his white half. So
yeah, and like we would do this, and people would definitely kind of be shocked about it. And they're just like, "Oh my god, they're breaking all these norms of how even men themselves should interact, even if it's on like a non-sexual level." It's like, because even with cisgendered men, it's like we're trying to, and I had the episode on like exploring masculinity. We're still breaking down those kind of barriers to say what does a wholesome, cisgender, and that's either like male, male, female, female. If you look at it from a binary approach, relationships still look like and how they're evolving. So I find it very interesting because me and Cody we're goofballs, and I'm sure both of you like have seen that with us like anytime we interact in person. So. One thing to kind of tie it back in, I want to ask Leia. So I guess kind of from the flip perspective of what Mickey just asked Cody, how does that kind of relate to you? Like you being the bisexual partner, and I believe your partner is cisgendered. I don't want to make assumptions, but is that correct?
No. Yeah, so that is pretty much on nose. He is a cisgendered, straight, white male. Okay. And I guess, could you repeat the question if you don't mind me?
I want Mickey to repeat it because she repeated it well.
Yes, please. Because I am terrible and I have a wonderful memory, clearly.
Darius went, actually, I don't remember the question very much either. Mickey, can I give you an audible?
So what's your partner? And I hate to have you speak for him, but do you both maybe then consider your relationship a queer relationship instead of a straight relationship?
I mean, definitely, I feel like since we are kind of in a much more locked in relationship, he definitely wouldn't identify himself as queer, but personally, our relationship is quite queer because he still understands that I will have these attractions to really everyone that I get in contact with that I find attractive. So in a sense, yes, our relationship is queer, but him as an individual, and kind of like how Cody put it, is like, as individuals, I am very queer, he's very straight. But together, it's a wonderful mix of the two, because at that point, it's like you have to take both identities in consideration, and also see how we are romantically. So I would say, yeah. Go ahead.
No, continue. Sorry.
But kind of like how Mickey was jumping on how people would expect bisexual people to identify as straight once in a heterosexual relationship, but also expecting someone to be not bisexual, but gay or lesbian once in a same sexual relationship. It's kind of difficult because you have to often prove how bi or how queer you are just to be in those spaces or just to be accepted, kind of like how Mickey was going about, like if I took my partner to a queer space like Piranha, Vegas folks, you know where Piranha is, you know what that is. I don't know if we would be really accepted there because I'm stepping out with a man who's white, and it's just going to be awkward for a lot of people to really kind of grapple with that. Yes, I'm in a heterosexual, well, a queer identifying relationship, but we don't look what, quote unquote, what people would say.
Yeah, like you look like the part.
Cool. Exactly. And that's where I feel like a lot of people have issues with bisexuality and really just queer in general. Like, you don't look the part, as TikTok would say, like, oh, you know, those TikToks that have like, oh, you don't look gay. Oh, wait, hold on a sec. And then changes into that stereotypical look of being gay or being Asian. So I think that's where a lot of people have to grapple with how they want to kind of define their relationship if they are with someone who identifies as queer or bisexual or pansexual or whatever label that works for them.
So like being in those kind of relationships for the both of you, because when I was doing my research, I did come across a term. It's called the double closet. You know, because it's not, see, I'm learning, I do my best, but it's like learning about how, you know, trying to find a community that fits just you. Because like now I know that there is like a strong bisexual community. There's actually statistics show that bisexuality is growing amongst like the general population. But prior to that, there was always that grappling between like the two communities. It's like, especially being in traditionally considered heterosexual relationships, it's like, who would you gravitate more towards, you know? So I found that actually very interesting. And do you feel like there's more discrimination coming from the LGBT community in terms of trying to meet their definition of what queer is? Or do you feel like it comes more so from the heterosexual community to kind of say, you know, are they more welcoming that you're in the heterosexual relationship, but would they also be just as damning if you weren't?
And on a similar kind of vein, because you know, the concept of the double closet does relate to what we were just talking about with, you know, your relationships appearing more hetero passing. And so being in those spaces, there can be that fear of judgment, that fear of being shamed. Like, how does that also kind of relate to, you know, this concept of the double closet and then feeling like you have to prove yourself in those spaces?
Well, I would just say I don't have to prove myself to nobody. Don't nobody pay bills for me.
Yes,
And so I'm not interested in proving myself to either communities. My relationship is what it is. My partner, I love him dearly. I'm ready to ride this out till the wheels fall off, or however our relationship takes place. And by wheels fall off, I mean, you know, however the relationship manifests in itself, whether it stays or it stops.
Its course.
Yes, however it runs its course, because, you know, that's my baby. But and I'm not interested in proving myself, especially because I think that I will only go where I'm accepted, because I'm not interested in having to gain acceptance. And I'll say that about my sexuality, my gender identity, my racial identity. I'm not going where I'm not wanted. In my group of friends, particularly people who are really close to me, most of them are queer. And like my best friend of, I can't do math that quickly, but I've known this individual since middle school.
You didn't go to school for math. Let's just be real.
Right. That's not my forte. But you know, I've been along their side in their transition process, and understanding what his trans identity has meant to him. And so the people that I tend to gravitate to and have really strong relationships are people who are either queer themselves or queer accepting. And so I'm only interested in cultivating those relationships with them. I would also say I don't really go to a lot of queer spaces, particularly now that I'm partnered. And that is something that has been hard for me, because I really enjoy, my partner does not have the knowledge of what it means to be anything but straight. That's his lived experience. And he's not, I think since being with me in our relationship, he's been open to learning more, but there's still some of his comfortability levels that I have to respect. Like he has told me, I'm not comfortable going with you to Pride. And I get that. And I was like, I just think that you don't like fun and glitter, but that's okay.
I mean, glitter is messy.
It is.
From what I hear, it's the AIDS of the craft world.
Yes.
And just for anyone out there who's never been to a gay bar, there is an inherent difference between a gay bar and a straight bar, or like
definitely.
Yes, there is.
The energy is so much different, and like it's just more fun to get down at gay bars.
Definitely.
If you have a large enough group and you feel safe. It's the important things.
I would also say if you drill down to it, depending on the community in which you're in. So like when I was living in Vegas and I went out with a coworker, actually to Piranha, I did not have fun at Piranha. And I think that was because of me being a Black queer presenting woman, or a Black presenting woman in that space, because the white men just came up to me and started touching me. And I was like, bro, I throw hands for less. Do not touch me without my consent.
Consent is key here, people.
Yes. So there's some queer spaces I don't even want to be in, because it also drills down to like, what are the vibes? In the most famous Black question, who all gonna be there? Because I need to know.
That's fair.
And kind of like how Mickey was going about is like, you don't have to prove anything. For example, like in my own experience, there was a guy and I dated him for like 2 months in high school. You know, high school relationships, they're nothing really. But once I got into the relationship with a girl and we were dating for a couple of months and then we broke up, he asked me like, am I straight or am I gay? Prove it to me. Prove that you are bisexual. And it's like, no, I don't have to prove anything to you, because I know who I am and you're just sad. You are just mad about the fact that I broke your heart after 2 months of dating. And it really is just boils down to, where do you feel accepted? And there was a conversation that I had with a girl who kind of explained to me what the meaning of blood is thicker than water. So y'all know that phrase. And essentially what it means is that the blood of the covenant in the biblical sense is thicker than the water of the womb. So really, it's just the chosen people that you keep around you. It's going to have stronger relationships than relationships that you have with your family, because you are cultivating that tribe. You're cultivating the people that you want to be around. While as your family, it's kind of harder to have those relationships or have those conversations of how you're going to present to them and how you want to be accepted, because they don't have to accept you if they don't want to. It's hard. It's a hard relationship, but
right.
I think that when it comes to what it boils down to is, you will find your tribe. You will find where you belong. I'm so sorry that you didn't have a great time at Piranha. We'll go to Oddfellows the next time you come. That's a better vibe, in my opinion.
Oddfellows is pretty cool. Yeah.
Just got off the clock, just got on my chill. Called on my homie Brent to see what be the deal. What you trying to do? I'm just trying to heal. Hella floated, never bloated's what I'm trying to feel. Hop in the whip and